Hello, I'm Renee Cooper, a training specialist here at 2020, and I want to show you how you can discount like a pro in 2020 Worksheet. Now, as a designer, pricing a project is not the most exciting part of the process, at least for me. Sales is always talking about numbers like net price, margin, profit, which again, as a designer, is not my language. Well, luckily, Worksheet does all the calculations for us. We just need to know two things. We need to know, one, how the product will be sold to the customer, and two, how us, as the dealer, is going to purchase the product from the manufacturer. And once we know these two things, Worksheet does all the rest. So let's go ahead and go into a blank worksheet and let's look at the columns that we have available. So under Customize Columns, in our worksheet properties, we're going to be working with the columns under the discounts, pricing, and totals. We know that there are basically two things that we need to know. Again, how we're going to sell it to our customer, and second, how we're going to purchase it from the manufacturer. So in terms of selling to our customer, there's kind of two different ways that we can do that. One, we could be taking a % off of list price, or we could be taking the cost of the product and marking it up either a flat % or a margin %. So in the first scenario, if we go up to our discounts, if we're going to be working on a project where we're just going to be selling to our customer at a % off of list price, we'd be using the sell minus a % column. If we're going to be marking up our purchase price as a dealer, then we would be using the sell plus % column. Or if we're going to be marking it up a margin %, we would be using our margin % column. So I've got those four columns checked. And then, of course, we'll be purchasing the product, typically at a %. So I'm going to turn on all four of those columns under discounts. And then when it comes to pricing, of course, we have our list price on. But I might also want to see the purchase price, the sell price, and then how much dollar amount I'm making for my margin. So let's turn those on. And then under totals, of course, we want to turn on our extended sell. I might not be that interested in the extended purchase or margin, so I'm just going to leave those off for now, but just be mindful that they're available if you want to see those numbers as well. So now I'm just going to say okay. And so you can see here in that blank worksheet, those columns are turned on. But now let's go into a worksheet that I've already created with some product in there. And I have product from different manufacturers. So if you look at the manufacturer column, you can see there's different codes. And even within the manufacturers, I have some products that are from different catalog codes. And then I also want to go in and turn on a column under the tagging portion. So under tagging, there is a column called generic. And some manufacturers use this to actually be able to code out their product even in more detail than the actual catalog code. So for example, here my row 7 is from a catalog called HST, but within there, under the generic, it has a code of RY. And my row 8 is in the same catalog, but the generic code is different. And that's because this particular manufacturer has different products in the same catalog that they want to discount differently. So if that's the scenario, they'd be using this generic column typically as well. So just keep that in mind. And so now I need to go up and turn those same columns back on. And this is where having a template set up would come in real handy. And of course, we have a class on discounting or templates and discounting. So I encourage you to think about taking that course. It's available online as a 2-hour class with a trainer, or you can just do it on demand as well. I'm going to go in here and see if I can get these columns. I want to know my margin, my purchase, my sell. So the great thing about templates is I don't have to remember what these different columns are every time. It's going to be right there on for me. I'll say okay. All right, so I think I have all of those on. Now you might notice that my worksheet looks a little different than normal. That's because I've gone up to view, rows, and I've turned off my options columns. It just helps consolidate my worksheet a little bit more. And then also at this point, a lot of times I like to auto hide my Explorer bar. So I'm going to come here and auto hide that. And same with my preview pane. I'm going to auto hide that. Again, it's just giving me a little bit more real estate on my screen left to right as I have these multiple columns on. And so let me just try to consolidate some of these so we can see this. All right. Okay, so again, our different scenarios. So let's just take row 1, and I'm going to plug in some numbers manually just so you can see how Worksheet automatically does the calculations for you based on the 2 things that you need to know. But then we're going to go in and I'm going to show you how you essentially can create the different discounts and then apply them to a worksheet. And then taking it a step further, as you create your discount, you can actually save it to what we call a schedule, which is basically just a listing of all the different discounts that you've created, either by manufacturer code or catalog code or generic code, that you can then save as one entity and continue to apply that to your worksheet as your project kind of evolves, and as well to other worksheets, either within that same project, or maybe you're working with a client on several projects and the discounting is the same. And so you'll have that schedule that you can then apply to, again, several different worksheets, which is a huge time saver. All right, so looking at row 1, let's talk again about our different options in terms of how we might be selling to our customer. And again, one scenario is you might be selling at a % off of list price. In my experience has been that's typically if you're working with a manufacturer and the customer has a pretty large project and you're trying to do some special pricing for them. So typically they would say, okay, as a manufacturer, we're going to say that you can sell the product to your customer at, let's say, 75% off list. So that's where you would use the sell minus % column. So I'm just going to type in 75% and hit enter. And again, remember, you don't have to do it manually. We're going to create our own discounts. I just want to show you how the numbers work. So there, I'm selling it at 75% off of list. But I, as a dealer, am going to purchase it for, let's say, 85%. So I need to plug in how I'm going to purchase it. So I'm going to say 85%. So once I hit enter, Worksheet does all the calculations for me. And so if I come over to my list price, I can see that number. And so 85% of that is going to be the purchase number. And then 75% off of the list is going to be this sell number. And you can see it automatically calculates my margin for me. So I'm making a 40% margin based on those calculations. Now, the other scenario might be if you're just taking your purchase price at a dealer and then you're going to either mark it up a straight %. And so that would be using the sell plus column. So let's say for my row 2 here, I'm going to purchase the product. Let's make it simple. Let's just say 50% off. That's my dealer discount. And then I want to mark it up 20%. So I'm just going to type in 20%. And again, remember, this is a different number than margin. Okay, so I put in my 20%. I purchased the product. Here is half the price of the list price. And then I marked that up 20%. So that's giving me the sell. And it's showing me that I'm making a 16.6% margin. Now, the other scenario might be if you're going to mark it up an actual margin percent. So we'll take row 3 here. And under the purchase, again, I'm going to purchase it for 50% off of list. But I'm going to mark it up and make a 20% margin. So if I type in 20%, that number is going to be different in terms of my sell to the customer than it would be if I was just marking up a flat 20%. So I know that's a little confusing, but just be mindful in knowing, asking the question, am I marking it up a percent off of the purchase price, or am I going to mark it up a margin of the purchase price? Okay, so those are the different scenarios. Now, again, I just did these manually, so let me show you how you can actually create a discount. So if I go up to my menu bar and go to Worksheet, I'm going to go to Apply Discount. Now, this might look a little different than yours right now because it kind of remembers the last thing that you've done. But first of all, it's going to ask you to name a discount. And a couple of recommendations. I always like to put in the catalog code that I'm referring to with this discount. So if I discount my first 3 rows, that's going to be APR. That's my catalog code. And then I'll put in the manufacturer. And then I also like to put in a date, like the month and the year. So I'm going to put in like 5/20 of 22. Okay, so that way I just have a good idea of when I created this discount. And so again, if we take our first scenario where we were going to purchase the product at 85% off, but then we're going to sell it at 75% off of list. So that's the sell minus percent. And notice to the right of each one of these options, you have these little chevrons. And this just allows you to do a tiered effect. So if you were actually going to maybe purchase product at 50, 10, and 2 or something like that, you could plug those numbers in here and it would give you that percent. So just be mindful of that. So now that I have this plugged in, I want to apply it only to the product in my worksheet that has a catalog code of APR. So it's very, very important that I come down to my discount criteria. I click on my catalog column, and under the operator, I have some options, but typically it's always going to be equals, and it's going to equal APR because that's my catalog code. And before I say okay, notice down here there's a checkbox that says apply this discount to the current schedule. So I want to do that because this is going to allow me to create a listing of all my different discounts. So I'm just going to say okay. So there, it plugged in those numbers. So these first 3 rows all have a sell minus of 75, and they all have a purchase percent of 85. Because again, they were all under this catalog code. So I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to go into apply discount. And this time I'm going to do the rows 4 and 5. So again, I like to put in the catalog code. So I'm going to say GCR. And this is Gunlock. And again, I like to put in a date, 5/20 of 22. And so this time, let's say we're just going to do a margin. We're going to mark it up a 20% margin, and we're going to purchase it for 50% off of list price as a dealer. So again, I'm going to come into catalog, and I'm going to say this is equal to GCR, and say okay. I don't have to worry about selecting my rows. I don't want to do it that way. I really want to always do it by criteria so that there's no question about what rows it's applying those discounts to. So here's my purchase percent at 50, and I marked it up a 20% margin, and it created all the other numbers I needed automatically. And keep in mind, this is intuitive, so if I change my quantities, it will automatically update the pricing. However, if you ever have any questions or concerns, you can always come down here and hit recalculate just to make sure that everything is up to date. And then last, we can do a quick one here against a generic code. So again, if ever you have a situation where you have multiple products in the same catalog, but the discounts are going to be different, you got to separate those out somehow. And so a lot of times it's the generic code, or in some cases you might have to create your own code using one of the other tagging fields that are blank that you can automatically put information into. So in this case, I'm going to still use the catalog code, but I'm also going to put in the generic code. So HST, I'll do the RY. So I'm on my row 7. And so let's say this time I'm going to just do a straight percent markup on my 50%. And we'll say 25%. But then again, I need to come down and find my generic column, and that is going to equal the RY. Oh, I didn't finish filling this in, so I'm just going to say HM, I'll just do this. Herman, oh, I guess it's Miller Knoll now. Miller Knoll, and again, a date, 5/20/22. And I'll say okay. And they're automatically calculated that number for me here. So now, if I go up to Worksheet, I can go to Apply Schedule. And this is going to bring up those 3 discounts that I just created. So from here, I can make changes to them if I want. I can go into Modify. I can make changes as I need to. I can print this out, which is really handy. That way I, have a record of what these are. And again, I can go ahead and save this so that I can then reuse it in either this same worksheet as maybe my project is evolving. And then also I can create it or apply it to another worksheet that has this same information in it, same products, same discounts. So I'm going to go out here and say save. And I'll just stick it on my desktop and I'll call it Neocon Pricing. I already had one out there. I'll just overwrite it. So there it's giving it a name. So now if I go into, this is that same worksheet, but before I created any of the discounts, I can go up to Worksheet, go to Apply Schedule. I can go out to Load, find that on my desktop, say Open. So there are those 3 discounts that I created. Apply. So there's my extended cell. And just comparing it again to my first worksheet, showing you how those automatically applied without me having to recreate the discounts, which is the best part of it, right? So again, hopefully this helps you. You feel like you can discount now as a pro. And you can learn more about discounting and templates if you go out to our website and go under training. You'll see all those classes available.